What's going on, everyone? This is Deke back with another Sorare video. Today we are going through some MLS values for game week number 2. If you checked out my last video, had some guys that really went off in it, and there are still some great values out there. As far as the MLS, I know prices are down, but if you're looking at limited, MLS is a definitely very good option to join in because they're cheap and are scoring a lot of goals. And let's get into it. So John McCarthy's my first one. So his price has fluctuated significantly. I did buy in on him before last week, and his price has just about doubled, right? Yeah. So I wouldn't as far as it's a little bit scary because it's gone up so far, and you know it could go down for sure, but he is going to be the keeper until probably the beginning of summer. Crepeau's definitely out with that broken leg. He will be back and will take over the starting role, but for LAFC, this is kind of a match-based video. So LAFC are the biggest favorites on the entire slate. They are playing the Portland Timbers, who, to say the least, kind of didn't look very good at all. Yimi Chara went down, and they just didn't look very good. LAFC they are at home. So after El Trafico was suspended and pushed back to, I believe, like July 4th, McCarthy's in a great situation. As far as MLS goalies, they're kind of hit or miss. And if we take a look at McCarthy, he's been a sub, he's been a backup, but whenever he's gotten in, 3 minutes and, the heroic penalty kicks effort, and then the other time he got a 53. So based on that, his L15 is 26, and you can use him very easily in your capped modes. And that's what I'm going to do for mine. I'm going to play rare 220 and use him as my keeper. Next up, I recommended him last week, and I'm going to go right back to the well. And Nouhou Tolo, he is amazing. I love him. Seattle looked unbelievable. They're in another great matchup here against Real Salt Lake. And I do think they are going to continue that momentum because whenever they are at full strength, they are an unbelievable team. If you take a look at last week's video, he had a 49 AA game for an 84, which was top 5 in all defenders. So great shout out by myself. You got to take the wins whenever they're the wins. There were some players that dropped duds, but we're not here to talk about that. We're only here to talk about the wins. So I am going to recommend him again. And I think they're in a great matchup again. Be careful, though, because they go to at Cincy, and then they have LAFC, at Sporting, at Galaxy. So a bit of a tough stretch after this. So maybe if you can sell on a high, he's only $7. That's crazy to me. And his price has risen a little bit. So definitely a value for sure. Next up, we're going to go to Atlanta United. They are playing Toronto. Unbelievable. Almeida had the absolute legendary goal. What can you say about this Atlanta United team to fight back? And I believe it's like the 88th minute, something crazy for the winner. So Gutman is $13, so a little bit more expensive, but they're playing Toronto FC, who, boy, they looked out of sorts. And if you take a look at his last several matches, this guy wouldn't be a capped mode guy, you would think, but 55 is doable. So, looking at his score, he's been unbelievable. He's been 60 plus, and almost all of his last 8 games. He does have decisives in there. The big thing was last week he did not have a decisive. He had 28 AA and put up a great score. You take a look at this 100, he had an assist and he put up 42 AA. The AA is definitely there. They are at home against Toronto, and I think he's going to have another nice AA game at a decent price. Next up is San Jose and Montero, Jamiro Montero. I don't like San Jose much this year. I like pieces of them, but I don't like their kind of outlook as far as the entire season. They are in a good matchup here with Vancouver, and I think that Montero is going to be the guy that you want to own. Cade Cowell's fun as well. He didn't have a very good first one, and he is expensive. $20 is a little bit more expensive for this video. I know it's values, but what you're getting out of that $20 is kind of insane. If you take a look at his scores, he had a 35.3 AA game in a loss at Atlanta, where they conceded 2 goals, still 35 AA. He is going to put the AA scores up. He has a little bit of variability in last season. He put up a lot of yellow scores, but he was kind of getting into the team and getting into the MLS. And I think this year he's going to have a really good year. So it's not going to be just here. The reason I really wanted to, even though he's a little bit more expensive, let's take a look at his next two. So he has the Whitecaps, and then he has Colorado, who looked absolutely horrible in their first match at St. Louis. St. Louis come off an amazing away win against Austin. Then Toronto at home, Houston at home. This stretch is unbelievable for San Jose, and Montero should absolutely eat this up. So I love him here. I don't own any of him, but if you're in the limited market, he is an absolute stud. They haven't released any of the, semi-pro, the amateur modes. If they release semi-pro for MLS, I think he's going to be the guy that I play and kind of just load up if they can bring it in the next few weeks, because he's going to be a stud, and especially if you can captain him. Next up, we're going to go with Daniel Pereira for Austin FC. We just said tough. I can't believe they lost. That's kind of the biggest shock for me. They play Montreal at home, and it's a good matchup. I don't really rate Montreal highly. I believe I predicted them to be like 14th in the East. I think they had a great year last year, but a lot of changing pieces, and they're just a different team. He had 30 AA, and they conceded 3 goals. That's kind of crazy to see, and he did have the AA last year, so it's not like the AA just randomly came up, but he's so cheap. $10 for him, and he doesn't have the crazy high upside, but he's a guy that's going to get 60s a ton. With the schedule as well, I do think Austin is going to be good. They're one match, it happens. Home Montreal, at Real Salt Lake, at Houston, and then home Colorado at LAFC is tough, then home Vancouver. So there are some really favorable matchups where he has a nice AA, so even in those tough matchups, he will be worth playing. And he has that under 23. Darlington Nagbe, $3. So this is a bottom of the barrel type of thing. If you take a look, they're playing home against DC United, who DC United shocked a ton of people as well. It's crazy the upsets that happen in the first. Let's take a look at Nagbe at home whenever he started, because that is what's going on here. Yes, he had a few yellows, but most of his yellow scores are from away matches. But he did have some upside earlier in the season, 86 here, 79, 61, and 63. He's probably going to get you in that 50 to 55 range, I would imagine. But in a matchup like this at home against DC United, I think he could have a little bit of tapped-in upside for this one. So Nagbe, $3. You can't go wrong. It's $3. And I do think he is worth it for a starter on a team that, although they got dismantled by Philadelphia is Philadelphia, and they showed that they're unbelievable still. Now, next one, we're going to go to Rossetto. We're going to go another Atlanta United. This is a cheap bottom of the barrel, $1.64. He is basically free, and rightfully so, kind of. So 35 L15. He has terrible scores, to say the least, very low scores. Even in last week, he had 3.9 AA and just not a great score whatsoever. But if we take a look back, he can put in a decisive from now and then, and he had several solid AA games, 10 plus, 27 and 1 as well. So I think 45 minutes here, 80 minutes, that is a good sign. Santiago Sosa is still suspended for this one, so I do think he's going to start. He is going to be out there for 75 plus minutes, and he could put up a much better score in a spot where his L15's 35. I do think he kicks that in a decent matchup, a solid matchup against Toronto. All right, let's get to our forwards. Forwards are harder to find a cheaper option just because they're forwards, and people, everyone knows about forwards. They're more expensive. We're going to go with Hebert. I don't know if he's going to start or not. Ruidiaz is going to be back. Now, will he start? I'm going to lean Hebert, and I think he's going to play at least 45 minutes. Even if he comes off the bench, I do think he's going to maybe off the bench, maybe closer to 30, but he can get a decisive. He looked outstanding in the opener for Seattle. They play Real Salt Lake. Again, I'm stacking a couple Seattle players in here, and I do think he's going to be really solid. Look at his past. He's not an AA guy whatsoever, so don't think he's a target man. He is going to be a goal scorer in the MLS where they score goals. He played 71 minutes last time out. He scored. He looked great. And if he can get the start and at least play like 60 minutes, I do see him getting a decisive. Back with New York City, he was kind of the same role where he was the target man. Yeah, he's gonna put up numbers. I do think his floor is absolutely nothing, because if he doesn't score, you know, the 26s, that's what you're looking at. So that is a little bit scary. He could kind of ruin a lineup if he doesn't score, but he's a guy at $10 at forward. You're not going to get that. Now, the only caveat with that, when Rudiez comes back, he will be the starter. So this is kind of a this week type of thing. But if you're looking for a striker that has the upside of scoring, not the worst thing you could do for $10. Will his price diminish if Rudiez is back and in the starting lineup? Yeah, that's going to crash a little bit, but it can't go much lower than that for a forward. And my last player is Darren Yappy. So Colorado was terrible, to say the least. The back line looked horrible. Yarbrough looked horrible. It just, everything about it, it was a nightmare. Yappy is $17.30, so it's a little bit on the upper side for forwards. He's only 18 years old, and with Diego Rubio out, he is going to step into that starting striker role. He's going to have a very low floor as well, and as you can see, he hasn't had a decisive. He's only 18 years old. He hasn't had a decisive yet, and he did start and only put up 39, but a 4-0 match that the forwards never really got involved in. So his AA is not going to be there. If we take a look just at his starts, it's only been 2, and 4 AA, 5 AA, nothing to write home about. But if there is a matchup, Sporting KC is not the worst thing at home to kind of get a bounce back. Then you got at San Jose, home against Minnesota, and then you get into a bit of a murderer's row as far as at Austin, LAFC, and then the reverse fixture with Sporting KC. So I do think he has a couple good matchups when Rubio is going to be out. Rubio, I believe 2 to 5 weeks should be out. So I think this is a guy that he could get a decisive, and he has a lot of talent. He's homegrown there. They really like him there, and they're going to give him a shot here. So I think he's a spot-on starter this week at striker, and at $17, not the worst thing in the world. So if you're looking for an under 23 team and you need a striker that is a little bit cheaper than maybe some of the other ones, he's not the worst guy to get, and an 18-year-old at that. So hopefully you guys like this video for Match Week 2. I'll try to do one of these like every week. We'll see how we did. Hopefully you guys liked it, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to keep this channel rolling. Thank you guys. See you next week.